Hello and welcome. I don't know why, but my camera feels lower today and I mustn't have lifted it up, so I feel like I'm further away from my computer, but that's okay. So, welcome everyone, and welcome to day 2 of this Soul Ignition. So, we are recording and I've got everything open, so we're good to get going. So I wanted to first, what we're going to do is we will recap Pillar 1, the things that we did yesterday. But I would love to start with, if you let me know in the chat box, what does being radiant, what does radiance look like for you? So pop that in the chat box and I will get the slide deck up and ready. How do I get rid of that? Hang on a sec. So funny. I'm just one sec. There we go. Okay. Now I'll share my screen. Share, present. Okay, here we go. So today is day 2 of this Soul Ignition. And we're going to recap day 1. We're going to dive into my absolute favorite, which is the heart. We're going to discover Pillar 2, and then we'll reflect. And if we've got time, we'll do a quantum activation. And so everyone that was here today was here yesterday, so we can go past these pieces. And so in Pillar 1, we talked about it being radiance, and what radiance being is cultivating an internal environment of coherence. And when I asked you guys what that was, let me have a look. Okay, Natalie says, shining the light that's in me without a care in the world. Katie says, massive smile on my face, feeling free, no insecurities, feeling like I look good and having fun and putting out a glow. Yes, absolutely. And then Nadine says, feeling fully alive, abundance of energy, love, and joy. And I really, really, really have, resonate with the energy piece, the vitality piece, because of how much of a difference that makes in our ability to do absolutely everything. And so cultivating this internal environment of coherence that our everything matches up. The things that are coming out of our mouth resonate with what actually we feel internally, and that experience of the light, the coherence between the cells, and the cells being able to communicate clearly, and there being a sense of inner peace within us, and then a glow that happens when we feel that alignment and we feel that coherence within us. And it's luminosity. It is about the glow. That's what radiance is about. And when we are in good health and vitality, so good health in the sense that it's difficult for us for there to be coherence within the body and the cells if we have a poor diet. It is difficult for there to be coherence within the cells if we might have a good diet, but we have a stress-filled life. And so, or we might have lots of unresolved feelings and unresolved trauma within us that is creating density in the cells and not allowing there to be this free flow within the cells, which affects the luminosity, it affects the communication and the transference within the cell. And so if you picture yourself, like we shared in the example yesterday, like I shared in the example yesterday in the study that has been done, if you picture yourself even once a day being in your full radiance, what do you look like? What does your skin look like? How do you speak? How is your hair? What are you wearing? What is surrounding you? And tuning into the frequency of that version of you, that radiant version of you, and what that looks like. You start to close the gap between where you are now and spending 80% of your time being lit up and being in that radiance. And so now the other piece that's fundamentally important for this, for soul ignition, but for radiance, is the heart. It all comes back to the heart center, to the physical heart and the emotional heart, the energetic heart. So it all happens within this space. We talk about heart coherence, and there's a theory called heart coherence, where if we tune into the heart and create coherence within the heart within the heart consciousness, we can actually lower blood pressure, manage anxiety and depression, and all of those pieces. So if we actually look at the heart and its significance in all that we do and all that we desire to create, it's really the core, the absolute core piece. So the heart is really so much more than we really understand if we ask. So I'm going to ask you and have a think about this and pop it in the chat box. What does the heart make available to us? So of course the obvious thing is love, but what else does the heart make available, the heart consciousness make available to us? That we are not machines, that we are humans that have this heart consciousness. So what does it make available for us? And the other piece is, if we consider when, we understand that when we want to make decisions about something, if we follow our head and we allow our head or our ego or our personality to make the decision, we make a completely different decision than we do if we make it from our heart consciousness. And so it's that center is really where our soul guidance comes from, and where we get access to all of what we want to create in our life and all of these experiences. So I'd love to hear in the chat box what you feel that the heart makes available to us. Oops. So other than love, what would you say? And so our heart frequency and our heart consciousness is where we have access to all of our feelings. And this is where there's so much that we don't necessarily understand about the heart frequency and the heart consciousness. How how, when we know logically that the best thing for us to do is to live in alignment, with our heart, what our heart says, yet we hear the guidance and we feel what that is for us, and then we go against it because our head says something different. And there's reasons for us that there's reasons and patterns and conditioning that has us make those choices, but it's really the second brain. It's really the second brain, and it's the brain that I prioritize. And that when we prioritize that brain, our life looks different. And so Natalie says acceptance and the ability to find that oneness with our environment. Yes, it's our ability to connect. So our heart allows us to connect with others. And as humans, we know that humans cannot survive without connection. We are designed to be in community. And in fact, so Dr. Zach Bush is a really, really cool scientist that I've listened to lots of his stuff. And he makes science really fun to listen to. And he talks about a cell in isolation is chaotic. That what a cell studied in isolation is complete chaos. And so he's saying that in science, what they do is they study a lot of pieces of science in isolation. That they study the cell in isolation, and that is not a true representation, because cells in community create coherence with each other, and so, or incoherence when something's not right in the environment. And so what that tells us, I'm just letting people in. So what that tells us is that when we're left alone, when humans are alone, chaos happens. We get into mind loops. We make up all kinds of stories about things and about our life. And when we come into community, there can be a natural co-regulation that can happen. And so who we spend time with and the community that we choose is vitally important, because they affect the functioning of the cell, which is you. And so if we look at we take a journey through, now we're going to take a journey through heart consciousness, and what happens in our heart, in our energetic heart, when these, I've listed off, I think there's like 9 or 10 states of mind that we go, that humans have this experience of. And then everything that all the feelings, we're just naming all of the feelings that can be present in someone's, in someone's body and in someone's heart and mind at any given time. And then I'll share how that relates. So we're going to, what does the heart make possible for us? I've already asked that question. It makes us, it allows us, and it gives us access to all of our feelings. So when we experience uncertainty, when we experience comparing ourselves in the world, when we experience things, unplanned things happening, things that we haven't planned out, that we haven't made concessions for, things that are beyond us, like we go, wow, I don't even know how this happened or how this is possible, where things aren't as they seem, and when we're hurting. So these are all the feelings, like stress and overwhelm, but the other side, like excitement and vulnerability. So for me, I have supported myself to shift that, instead of, as I'm going into something that's uncertain and feels unfamiliar. Like I used to get really intense social anxiety when I was walking into a room where I wasn't familiar with everybody in the room. And I did have the experience of anxiety and worry and all of those experiences. But when we can sit in our heart consciousness and choose and decide what we want to become available there, is that for me, that's like an adventure. It's exciting for me of this is how I framed it now, of who I might meet and the new connections that I might have. And so if we look at, the heart and all of that's available, that it can be one way or the other, many of these different feelings can be present from these experiences that we have. And when we're hurt, anguish and hopelessness and despair and grief and sadness and things not being as they seem, and it creates this cognitive dissonance which challenges the coherence within our body and challenges our ability to be in radiance. And so what we get to do is we get to, by understanding all of these pieces and really getting a concept of the what's available to us within the heart consciousness, getting all of these pieces, recognizing what's actually happening for us and having us respond in a certain way, and then bringing ourselves back to a place of coherence so that we can do XYZ, so that we can shine our light, show up, do the thing that is stretching and leaning into our edges. And so then the next is there's more. The heart is quite incredible. So there's more. And so, that's so funny. I started from the beginning and called them 1, 2, 3 again. So when we're with others, if we're alone, we have different experiences within our heart consciousness than we do when we're with others, or when we express and communicate with others about what is going on within us. Sometimes we can feel a feeling like, oh my gosh, I feel anxiety right now. And my husband always says to me, is that anxiety? He goes, is that worry or is that excitement? And then sometimes I sit there and go, and I ask myself, I'm like, yeah, it's actually excitement. So what happens for us and what becomes available for us through connection with others is that we have the ability to make this perception shift and bring coherence back into the heart space. So with others, we can access compassion, or we can go into pity and empathy and sympathy and all of these pieces. When we fall short, of an expectation we have of ourselves, shame, self-comparison, perfectionism, guilt, humiliation, embarrassment, and our search for connection. When we desire, when we're in a place of, I would like connection, is that we have what becomes available to us is belonging, connection, and on the other side of that is that then we can become present to the disconnection and the insecurity, feeling invisible. This used to be a really big thing for me, is this, I feel like I don't matter. I feel like I'm invisible. When I wanted to connect at a deeper level, or something that really mattered to me, my experience based on, childhood wounds was that I was invisible when it really mattered, when I was really searching for connection. And as we traverse this incredible terrain of the heart consciousness and what we do in all of my programs in working together is that we become aware, we bring awareness to all of the pieces that are there, so that we can hold them and bring light to those pieces. And then that's when the alchemy can start to happen, is that when we can see it all, when we can hold it all, when we can be with it all. And so this process that I'm sharing with you is about the awareness piece and everything that's possibly going on within that other brain that we have. And so it's just as complex as as this brain is. And so when our heart is open, love or loveless, feeling that something's not reciprocated, heartbreak, trust, self-trust, betrayal, defensive, and then, absolute flooding. And when life is good, joy, happiness, calm, contentment, joy again, relief, and tranquility. And so we get to be in that place of, when we're in the goodness, when we're in the flow and in the radiance, and we're like, this is great, that we can actually allow ourselves to stay in that place and experience these feelings of joy and happiness and calm and contentment, and then amplify those to send out the message through the rest of our body for this coherence piece, that this is being anchored into the nervous system, and that we don't go straight out of our heart space, heart consciousness, and go into, what if this doesn't last? What if, I can't maintain this? Or, at what point is the rock about to drop? So that we get to stay in the heart and maintain that coherence within us. And then when we feel wronged, so the very valid feelings of anger, contempt, disgust, dehumanization, hate, and self-righteousness, that those feelings are part of the human experience. And so often, most people I've worked with, and I've worked with hundreds of students now, that the number one thing that they were not given permission for as a young person was to feel these unfavorable feelings of anger and disgust and rage and that type of thing. We haven't been taught, we haven't been allowed, we haven't learned the skills of traversing that for ourselves, and allowing ourselves to hold space in that feeling, let them be there, let them be acknowledged, and give ourselves permission to be in it so that we can let it go and move on. One of the exercises that I've found, which I found most beneficial for me, was in my early 20s. I was seeing a healer at the time, and I've shared this story, so some of you know this story. And she said to me, the first thing she said to me was, "What are you angry about?" And I said, "I'm not angry." And she just asked me repeatedly, because I was so disassociated and so disconnected from my actual feelings, that I didn't think I was angry. And I had so much internalized anger and rage that I had a severe, life-threatening autoimmune breakdown. So I had aplastic anemia and nearly died, and had long-term treatment, 2 years of treatment to recover. And so that internalized anger and that internalized unprocessed rage was eating me alive and creating a situation that was untenable, unsustainable. And it's like the body goes kaput if that continues. And so it was so fascinating, because it all happened at a very similar time, where she was saying this, and then this happened, and then the growth and the healing that took place after that, because my time on earth wasn't done at that early age of in my mid-20s, that I knew at that point something drastic had to change. And so there began this validation process within myself to validate all of these feelings. Now, it went against everything that I knew, everything that I'd been taught. And so it just felt so wrong. But on the other side, but I trusted the process. I trusted what I was being guided to do. And then on the other side of that, the freedom and the connection and the healing that becomes available when we are willing to walk through the fire and mud and horrible, experiences to break through this stuff. And at that time in my life, I didn't even know what I was missing. I didn't even know what I was missing out on. But now that we have the maturity, now that we're on the, where everyone, I'm pretty sure, because I've got most people's birth date when they booked in their calls with me, is most of us are on the other side of 30 and 40 and 50, that we have the maturity to know that we miss out on so much when we hold all this stuff within us. So let me just think about what the next slide is so I know where we're going. So I think here is where then we're talking, that I'm leading you into pillar 2. And so the heart is the bridge between pillar 1 and pillar 2. Oh, and first, before we do that, is this connection piece. So we've touched on the connection. So meaningful connection is what we're looking for. So we know that as children and as sometimes dysfunctional adults, that we do funny things or crazy things for connection. And like little kids, we know that, sometimes they misbehave or they do things that we don't want them to do for the connection. So we can still do things like that as an adult, is that we create connection through drama and gossip and stories and pain, and we can create connection in dysfunctional ways. But what we're talking about here is that when we do all the things that we've talked about in day 1 and the beginning of day 2, is that we create this healthy internal environment, and that we're cultivating this coherence within ourselves, so that we can be in this place of radiance, and we navigate our heart consciousness, that we're making our decisions from the heart, and that we're allowing ourselves, the human part of ourselves, to have this human experience, to feel all the feels and hold it all. And what we truly desire, what we're doing all of this for, is meaningful connection. And so everything that we do as humans is that we want a sense of belonging, that we want meaningful connection. And what becomes available to us when we get out of our own way, like address the dysfunctional behaviors that we have, like, for example, one of the things that I used to do in my marriage was, if I went to my husband with something and then he gave me an answer that I didn't like, instead of continuing with the connection, to continue with the communication, to work through the thing, I would immediately freeze. I'd go into the nervous system defense mechanism of freeze, but I would then stonewall. And that was a protective strategy that I had developed as a child. And that as soon as I had a situation in my adult life, so I'm this adult with children and, looking like an adult, and then acting as an adapted child, acting like a 5-year-old when I hear an answer that I don't like. And then I would create this, I had this strategy in place which caused disconnection. Now, all I wanted and needed in that situation was connection. But I had weird ways of communicating that and sabotaging myself with that. And so the learning here and the skill that we can develop is that everything gets to be resolved with connection. Even if somebody is doing something that you don't like and that you want to end a relationship or stop something, it happens through connection that you end that thing. So stonewalling and having no boundaries and all of those pieces that affect interpersonal relationships are dysfunctional behaviors that we create that actually inhibit our ability for connection. And so what meaningful connection is grounded confidence in that I trust myself and I trust what it is that I desire, and I trust my ability to express and communicate that. I trust myself that even if it doesn't go the way I want it to, I'm going to survive. So I can breathe my way through all of my triggers. And this is this trusting the self, the grounded confidence, the courage to walk alongside others. So the courage to do that with others. It's perceived, I don't agree, but it's perceived to be easier if I just do this on my own. You know, in business, one of the things, because of the stories around independent woman and doing things on my own and being raised by a solo mum who was incredibly high functioning and did amazing things, and the stories that I had were, I have to do this on my own, I have to be independent, and it's some kind of badge of honor that I had to do it on my own. That the courage to walk alongside others was a stretch for me initially because of what it involved in the relationship skills that had to be developed within me in order to do it with other people, in order to connect with other people, in order to maintain any relationship. Is we have to have, you know, a solid skill set to be able to navigate all the things that come up in relationship. And so, and then the other piece, so that's the courage piece. And so the other piece is the tenderness in the story, is that when somebody is trying to connect with you, but they might be doing it in a way that, you know, might be triggering for you. So I always use my husband as an example because, you know, we're such different people, and often he'll say things, and then I can feel myself going, I feel the trigger happening. I feel the resistance in my body. But the tenderness piece is that we can be in our heart and be present and listen and receive what it is that they're sharing, because it's likely that it takes courage on their part to make the connection. And so if we stay in that tenderness, if we stay in that softness, we can traverse the feelings that come up in us, and we can support the other person to traverse what's there for them. And then that's meaningful connection. That's intimacy. And that's what supports us in cultivating this beautiful radiance within us. And so the next piece now is pillar 2. So pillar 2 is, it's in the middle. Pillar 2 is magnetism. So I would love to hear in the chat box, what does magnetism look like to you? What is it? Can you tell me what you think it is, what it means to you? If you think of somebody who's magnetic, what are they like? You can say it in one word or a couple of words. Oh, is that, yes, you've just typed this, great. So alive, vivacious, energetic, yes. What else? How else would you describe magnetism? Magnetism is vibrationally calling to others our desires and what is meant for me. Yes, Renee. And then Nadine says attraction, pull toward that energy. Yes. So the actual definition of magnetism, so magnetism is a physical phenomenon. Natalie says all of the above. A physical phenomenon by by the motion of electric charge, which results in attractive or repulsive forces between two objects. And so that's the definition. And then if we look at it in people and in business and what it looks like in our life, it's all of those things. You know, enchantment, the person is enchanting or captivating and full of spirit. So with magnetism, it's like you can just feel the person. It's full of spirit means full of the soul essence rather than the ego. And so being all of your authentic self. And the law of magnetism says that we draw. So there's a magnetism that draws two, and then there's the magnets that repel each other if they're too similar. And so if we look at that in people, you know, we attract what we are. And so that can be challenging, you know, a hard pill to swallow at times. But if we attract what we are, and especially if we put this into our business setting, if we in our business show up and we're devoted to what we're doing and we're willing to lean into our edges and we're self-responsible, then what we attract in our business is people that are willing to do what we've prescribed to them. They're willing to show up. They're willing to lean into their edges. So we attract what we are. And where there's distortion at times is that there will be a distortion or a lack of coherence somewhere within our belief system, within the stories that we tell ourselves. And sometimes these pieces can be blind spots. And sometimes they're obvious and we know what they are, but we don't always commit to doing something about it. And so one of the things is, in all of my programs that we do, the alchemy healing work as well. We always look at bringing awareness to those stories, to those limiting beliefs, to those programs and templates that are holding us back. And then we have, you know, beautiful healing and practices to support us to alchemize and move through those so that we can replace it with how we want it to be. And so if we look at magnetism, is that we in our life, we use this skill, you know, it's our ability to connect with people, and then our ability to, like, it's our ability to attract, and then our ability to then let it in for it to come in, and actually how open we are. So you can have the experience in life where you are noticed or you are heard or being received by others, but then the magnetism is not fully felt if, as the person tries to connect with you, you then stonewall or freak out in some way that you shut them out, and then that connection, that meaningful connection, can't happen. And so this was an experience that I traversed in the first few years of my business, in my coaching business, was that I was doing all of the things to call people in, and then I would feel myself get to the place of, can I really hold this? Can I really allow this deep connection to happen? And then I would create the distortion so that then the people didn't feel like they were able to finish the connection and become me, stay magnetic and make the connection. And so what has shifted is that now people are able to feel the pull, and then they know that it's safe to continue to make the connection, that I am open enough that I can hold all of what goes on in supporting people in their areas of their life that can get really messy, that can get really challenging, and that I have the capacity to hold that. And so now there's a safety that has been created in those relationships, that an openness that I hold, that people are able to continue to come in and make that connection. And so magnetism is such an important part of business, but of life. If we want to even have meaningful friendships and have a deep, intimate relationship with our chosen partner, is that we want their magnetism is where the excitement and the passion and the fire and the aliveness makes life truly exciting to do with another person. And so we want to have that frequency between everyone that we interact with. So by cultivating that within ourselves, it allows and makes available to us more business, more customers that come to us, more beautiful, deep and meaningful friendships and joyful relationships, and more fun and intimacy within our intimate relationship. And so I've mentioned safety. So I'd love to ask you, if we've talked about all of these pieces with radiance and with magnetism and with the heart, and all of these aspects depend on how willing we are to be present in our body. So it requires us to be deeply present and landed in our body. Now, if we have a whole lot of unresolved stuff and we've got blockages that we're aware of and we have anxiety and worry, those are all times that we're not present in our body, that we go into our mind and we disassociate or as a coping strategy for what it is that is happening for us. So my question for you, so share with me in the chat box, from 0 to 100, how safe do you feel to be present and landed in your body? Mm. 90 and 80 and 80. Always an edge of caution. I missed the question. The question is, what percentage, 0 to 100, what percentage would you say of how safe you feel to be deeply present and landed in your body? How safe do you feel in your body? 0 being not at all safe, 100% fully safe. 95, beautiful. Now, next question is, how have you been speaking to your body? And then the next question is, if you place your hand, one hand on your womb space, one hand on your heart, you can close your eyes if that helps you come into presence, and taking a deep breath, and then asking your body, not your mind, asking your body, what does she need to heal? What does she need for her next layer of healing? And so the question that was back at how do you have you been speaking to your body lately very differently than usual, calling her Queenie since we had to name her. I love that. I laugh in a loving way that I have this friend who would call me mate, and I said to her one day, I just really don't like being called mate. And she said, what do you like being called? And I said, and I listed off some things, and one of them was Queen. And so she always refers to me as Queen, because I don't mind babe, lovely, all of these different things, but I just didn't like mate. And then and it's such an interesting feeling in the body when you get called Queen. So I love that that's the name that you have for yourself, Katie, in a way that always leaves me feeling like I need to do better. Yes. Historically, with criticism, but I try to speak to my body with love and compassion nowadays. Beautiful. Real self love and commitment. Okay, so this is the answer to the question, what does your body need to heal? What does she need for the next layer of your healing? Real self love and commitment. And Renee says, my body needs movement. And when I do this exercise, so often the thing that I need is movement. I'm so focused on what I'm doing and, feeling fulfilled in my experience of serving people. And then I sometimes sit there and go, what do you need right now? And I can be hungry, but the message I'll always get is movement. And so I've now got a rebounder little trampoline that if I can't do any significant exercise, just jumping on the trampoline actually moves the lymphatic fluid in the body and just creates exactly what I need, to move things through. So movement is such an act of self-love. And then Katie says, connection with my husband. Yes. Beautiful. Okay, so now I'm just thinking about the next slide. So now, and Nadine says, I have been speaking in an impatient way. It desires more compassion and willingness to be in a journey of self-discovery. Yes. Oh, a rebounder, Renee. Oh my gosh. I was like, really? Do I need another thing like this? But I use it every day. I love it, love it, love it. I've had it for maybe 5 months. And I had to laugh yesterday between calls. I went outside and was jumping on my rebounder, and the male, like a lady on the little motorbike, came, and she just stopped and she was just looking at me, bouncing on the, and she didn't know what to do. She's holding the mail in her hand. And I was like, you can just pop it in the letterbox. And she kind of giggled and off she went. But it feels so nourishing. Okay, so now the journal exercise is, now that we have this awareness, let me just close this. Now that we have this awareness about our priorities, how we want to speak to ourselves, about the coherence, about our heart, I would love in this journal exercise that and I'll have to pause the recording when I do this, because I learned when my husband was helping me with the replay last night, I don't own the rights to the music, so I'm not allowed to have commercial music in these webinars. So I'll press pause, and for those watching the replay, just play some beautiful music as you do this exercise. So the journal exercise today is to write a letter to your body and telling her how much you love her and how grateful you are for this gift of life. And so I'll just give you a few minutes to do that. I'll put some music on and I'll just pause the recording.
Just what you calling in. Honey, on the first start, this is where it all begins. Let me be medicine. Let me get out of the way so it can be enough space for the healing. Soothe your spirit with a melody as the remedy. Let me be medicine. Just what you're calling in. Honey, I know first love. This is where it all begins. Let me be medicine. Listen, what it did teach you. Trust you're strong enough to break through. It's in my nature to thrive. Or will it take for you to arrive here? Let me be medicine. Just what you're calling in. Honey, I'm the fresh start. This is where it all begins. Let me be medicine. Let me get out of the way so it can be enough space for the healing. Soothe your spirit with a melody as the remedy. Let me be medicine. Wherever you go, wherever you're looking for, let me be medicine.
Okay, we're back. Okay, so now that you have that letter that you've written to yourself, so I've already asked these journal questions: how you feel about your body, how you speak to your body, what does your body want you to do, and let her know how much you appreciate her. So now that you have this letter for yourself, one of the things that you can do is that over the next, your screen sharing is paused. Okay, am I recording? Hang on a sec. I don't want to miss anything. I don't know whether I'm. Okay, I think I'm still recording. Gosh, I hope so. Anyway, we'll just hope for the best. I think I pressed play. Yeah, there you go. I wasn't. That's good. That you've got this letter for yourself is that you read this letter and receive this letter for at least 21 days. You can just pop it next to your bed and you can read this letter to yourself. Now, we know that gratitude actually changes the brain. Gratitude remaps they've done brain scans, and it completely changes our heart coherence, but it actually changes the brain and how we see things. So if we're having this gratitude for our body, you can imagine what is going to become available for you, what's going to shift. And so if we tie everything in that we've talked about today, is that the body, our physical body, we're a soul having a human experience, and that the human part of us desires to be able to have all of these experiences, allow ourselves to feel all of the feelings, give ourselves permission to be with it, and then move through it so that it can move out of our body. We know that the body is the barometer of the soul. We know that the body keeps score. It remembers everything. It's held within the cells of the body. It remembers everything that we've experienced. And so it's through the body that everything you desire becomes available. And so our capacity to hold all of these things, as in hold the experiences that we're having, is the same as our
Literally, this is my first go day where I've actually got like 2 clients to go and see, and I'm like going,
1
I'm
second.
here at the mechanic.
Hang on. There we go. Is that everything happens through the body. And so it's the body that makes it available for us. And so we want to be allowing and inviting ourselves to be deeply present in the body. And so what that can look like is that when we haven't been doing that. So when I first started doing this, I hadn't been doing that. So there was a bit of a backlog of stuff that I hadn't processed. And so it felt really intense and really heavy when I started really being present in my body, because it had been neglected for a lot of the time. Now, I thought that, eating good food and doing exercise was enough of I'm in my body. But that's not the case. It's when things get hard, can I stay present and move through this experience? Can I allow myself to be in the rage of what it is that I'm experiencing? Can I give myself permission to work through a big, huge experience that I had many years ago that keeps popping up in my memory? And giving ourselves permission, because our capacity to hold all of these pieces affects our ability to receive everything that we want to experience: the money, the clients, the peace, the joy, the bliss, the pleasure. So this is by being present in our body, by giving ourselves these pieces, is it expands our capacity to receive the things that we desire to experience. So today, the exercise to share in the group is, what would it mean to you to win the scholarship? So you can do it in a written post or a video that's under 3 minutes, and you just go into the group. And so if you're watching the replay, same for you, is that you can just go into the group, share a short transmission, a written or video, of what it would mean to you to win the scholarship. So that concludes today, and I'm doing so well with timing. I'm so proud of myself. It's 3 minutes past 1. So thank you again for your presence and for your engagement and for your open and whole hearts, for the way that you've showed up today. I look forward to seeing what you've shared in the group. So those of watching the replay, even if it's day 1, just put at the top of the video, just put hashtag day 1. I forgot to give you this instruction. Just say at the top of your post day 1 or day 2, so that I can keep track. And let me just check the messages. Oh, sorry, the chat box. Thank you so. You're so welcome. Opportunity to join today. Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Renee. Okay, so that concludes today. Thank you again. Go well. And also same time tomorrow for the final day and for the final pillar. So I will see you all soon.